Okay, this subject kind of ties in a little bit with last week's and this week's material, in that we're talking about cybersecurity or information security, personal information security mainly. Last week, as you know, we kind of looked at it more from a corporate or organizational perspective. Uh, Little funny cartoon about the some of the evils that humanity has faced over time: the Goths, the Huns, the Vandals, and now our biggest worry are the geeks, the hackers, the people sitting in their basement doing all kinds of evil things to individuals around the world from the comfort of their own home. That's the stereotype, anyway. Uh, so, information security is more than hardware, but it has some of those characteristics we possessed or requirements that we talked about last week in terms of the individual as well. Uh, Characteristics are accuracy, authenticity, confidentiality, integrity, utility, and possession. As I say, we mentioned those last week. Uh, there's always a fundamental dilemma with security and human beings and computer users, right? We want to use what we have on our machines and on our tablets, our phones, etc., quickly and easily. We hate the long security passwords that are offered to us by the apps, so we pick our dog's name and our second child's date of birth. So it's we use to- Toby 713 as our password, and we use it for everything, right? Uh, the That's the worst mistake that they tell us that we can make. Anyway, and I mentioned the contrast between the way Marist and Keuka College do things in terms of passwords and updates and all that. And I've never, frankly, felt more secure at either place over the other. Even though one has made me get one password and I've used it for since I think 2013, and the other one requires me to change it every single 6 months without fail. Uh, but this whole discussion is important. This is 2016 data, but there was a 42% increase in targeted attacks on individuals. Uh, there have been over 5,000 new types of computer vulnerabilities were discovered. Uh, 55% increase in phishing campaigns. Phishing campaigns is when you're asked to provide a password or an account number to somebody that is representing to be somebody that you've done business with. I've seen a number of these, and I've almost fallen for a couple of them. Uh, in the last election, one of the political parties had its uh, email compromised by somebody who knew that its campaign director had I don't know, was a Yahoo account or a Gmail account, sent him a phishing message, and it said, "We need your password and your account number to update because you've got something wrong with your account or there's a payment due on it." I don't know, but he provided all that, and that's how they were apparently, legend has it, I don't know if this is true or not, but that's apparently how they got a hold of a bunch of political emails. Uh, so we've got 125% increase in zero-day vulnerabilities. Mobile systems have generated 415 new ones in 2016. And importantly, 43% of targeted attacks were on small businesses, those with less than 250 employees. Here's a little chart that kind of describes the whole uh, cyber threat, hacker, malicious operator scene since 1990. As you see from that straight arrow, that kind of indicates the level of sophistication of things being done has grown considerably since 1990. Uh, and you can study this on your own. But while the total number of attacks has gone down, there's the sheer number of users and computer applications has increased dramatically. So there's still a lot of danger out there, and the scale of things that can happen is now probably significantly higher. We know that today identity theft is the fastest growing crime in the United States. Uh, as I say, be leery of phishing, be leery of people calling in asking for personal information, because that's all, they're not going to do anything good with it generally. Uh, and there are a lot of measures that you guys are probably familiar with that are designed to do that. They're almost maddening too nowadays. But so someone's identity is stolen every 2 to 3 seconds. I had to have a credit card canceled. I don't know, in May or June, because somebody bought something in Florida. I think they were playing golf on a Florida golf course that I've never been to, and I haven't played golf in over a year now. But on average, it takes 600 hours to recover from identity theft. And the average loss per identity theft incident is $4,930. And the credit card component is just one aspect of it. I'm told that you should always use credit cards as opposed to debit cards, because the with a credit card, the protection is higher in terms of the credit card company will do more to help you out than somebody that's just taken money out of your account. Now, I think in the past, had incidences happen on debit cards too, and I believe the bank made me right. So I'm just saying some of the things that I've heard. You guys have probably heard a lot of this yourselves. 13.1 million people experienced some sort of theft in 2015. As again, this was a 2016 article. And a whole bunch of them, 63%, that's well more than half, involved weak, default, or stolen passwords. Over 95% of all incidents recognized human error as a contributing factor. So I guess the point of this presentation is vigilance personally, as opposed to the kind of the corporate way we looked at it last week. Cyber criminals are always trying to steal information, as we know. Here are some of, on the left are the types of information that's stolen, and on the right are the things that happen once they steal that. I'm not going to read through these. You can kind of survey those on your own time if you wish. Contemporary challenges and vulnerabilities. We have here the notion of corporate servers and corporate systems on one end, and clients and individuals on the other end. We as users or as clients or as consumers would be represented on the left-hand side. All of us entering into Moodle or entering our passwords and getting on Moodle are on the left-hand side. And then we know that the college has its own servers and corporate systems, and is charged with protecting us individually to a large degree too. But we can do things ourselves as well. Internet is a naturally vulnerable place. The way it was set up as a system of computers and files and servers, which is all the internet really is. We're all interconnected via that way. I mean, obviously we have gates, we have our routers and our blockers and our modems and all levels of other security software as well as hardware to protect us. But really, when you think about it, that's what the internet is. It's folders and data. Going back to some of our earlier comments and discussions. So it's open to anyone. The vastness of it means its abuses can have wide impact. Use of fixed internet addresses eases identification by hackers. In other words, all a website's files and organization is set up as folders that are easily findable. I mean, you can tell that when you get a full, you enter a site, it shows you where you are and basically reveals the architecture of the site to you in the window as you start to surf around any site or another. So we all know what viruses, worms are. Trojan horses and SQL injection attacks are things more that happen to corporate users. A Trojan horse appears to be benign, but then it does something other than the expected. A Trojan horse can be when you think you're downloading a piece of software and it's not as it says it is. That's why both Windows and Mac ask you not to trust software that you get from other sites now, or they will ask you if you want to install this. So they say this. You've probably all seen the dialogue. This is an application downloaded from the internet. Do you want to install it? And then it'll provide some sort of warning. So an SQL injection attack is a little bit different. Remember, we were talking about databases and sequential query language, SQL. And that is as I say, more of a corporate threat in that it can manipulate a company database into revealing information. So it basically, it's kind of a form of artificial intelligence that is employed by the bad guys. So it is to get databases to give up information. That's probably how a lot of, I think, credit card numbers do get stolen. You heard probably about the Target attacks and in Target stores is what I mean. A couple other companies, I think Walmart had an attack. There was a period of time about 2 years ago when it seemed that all the retailers were being compromised, and I think it has something to do with SQL injection. Spyware. These are programs that install themselves on individual users' workstations, and then they surreptitiously give you advertising, or they might connect you to other systems that can search based on the things you're doing on the computer. Keyloggers are considered a malware, but I also know of instances where forms of keyloggers have been suggested to parents who want to track what their kids are doing on the internet. So I think keyloggers have both malignant, as in malware, and benign purposes. I think. Security and countermeasures. Well, we all know about firewalls. They can be hardware or they can be software. The best known firewalls are built by or created by companies like Symantec and Norton. Software bugs, denial of service, TCP hijacking is basically when an internet address is somehow stolen. I think it has to do with aliases and all that. So your authentication is hijacked as well. So there are other less sophisticated, as I mentioned, security problems too. Telephone fraudsters. Somebody might call you and say, "Hi, I'm from AT&T, and who am I speaking to?" And they'll ask your name, and they'll start to ask you questions about your service. And we've had reports of people making unauthorized long distance calls on their phone to Turkey, and as you know, that's not included in your U.S. phone contract. And we have record here of you speaking to someone in Turkey for 7 hours and 39 minutes. Was that you, Mrs. Smith? And you will say, "No, that wasn't me." Oh, good. Maybe we can get this straightened out. Can you give me, I have your number. Can you give me your account? And, they start to get your account information. That's a very simple form of security or cyber threat. So they can get your information, and then they'll really mess with your account. So phishing, remember the story about the email. Password security, obviously, millions of people are fairly careless about their password. I hear my wife constantly tell my son what her password is so he can get on to various things. And I notice the passwords are all based on, their names and birthdays. So uh, anyway, uh, don't reveal that to anyone. I'm just kidding. So anyway, uh, but that's, these are really very simple things that people can do. Uh, Objectives of cybersecurity: keeping your confidentiality, protecting your integrity, and making sure that availability is there for you. In other words, denial, I mentioned denial of service a few slides back. That's basically uh, making what you're trying to access not there for you. Uh, so, so basic security services involve authentication. Uh, the first is that, are you who you say you are? Uh, Data origin authentication basically gives uh, proof that the source or the data received was sent by the source that was supposed to sending it. Confidentiality that's one of the reasons we have various systems of passwords, keywords. I know that to get on my Verizon account, I have to have like several different, not just my account username and a password. But then I'm sometimes asked for a third word, and so the confidentiality and authentication comes into effect when sometimes if I'm not on my usual computer and I'm going on to the Verizon account and to adjust FiOS or whatever, I enter all this information, and then they say, we are not familiar with your computer. We need to send you yet another thing. Should we text it to this phone number or email it to this email address? So that's just a couple of examples of those first three things: authentication, data origin authentication, and confidentiality, kind of all rolled into one scenario. And then data integrity is the assurance that what you're getting was what was meant to be sent. So that's kind of the fourth and final component of basic internet, and not just internet, but personal cyber information security.